Listen to me, worry is stealing your life. Every time you wake up anxious, replaying problems in your mind, trying to control outcomes that were never yours to control, you are draining your strength. You're giving your power to fear instead of faith. You got to understand something powerful. You were never meant to carry everything alone. The moment you start trying to figure it all out yourself, the moment you start depending on your own limited understanding, you start sinking. But when you shift that burden to God, when you decide, I'm not going to let this consume me, I'm going to trust that God already has a plan for this, that's when everything changes. Stop worrying about what you can't control. Stop replaying the what ifs. Stop giving energy to fear. Fear grows when you feed it. But faith grows when you release it. Faith says, even though I don't see it, I believe God is working behind the scenes. Even though I don't feel it, I know he's fighting battles I can't see. You see, worry is faith in the wrong direction. It's believing more in your problem than in God's promise. And if you keep believing the worst, your mind will find proof for it. But if you start believing that God is faithful, that he never fails, that his timing is perfect, your mind will begin to find peace even in the storm. You can't move forward carrying fear. Fear paralyzes. Worry blinds. It distracts you from your calling. It keeps you stuck, replaying problems instead of pursuing purpose. But when you trust God, when you say, Lord, I'm handing this to you, I'm not in control, and that's okay. You start to breathe again. You start to live again. Some of you have been praying and still worrying. You've been asking God to handle it, but still trying to fix it yourself. Let me tell you something that's not trust. Trust means letting go. Trust means saying, God, I'll do my part, but I won't carry what's yours to carry. It's not your job to figure out how God's going to do it. It's your job to believe he will. You don't need all the details. You just need faith in his direction. You don't have to see the whole picture. Just take the next step, knowing the one who holds tomorrow already has it under control. So the next time worry tries to creep in, and it will catch it, don't entertain it. Don't let it spiral. Replace that thought immediately. When your mind says, what if it doesn't work out? You say, even if it doesn't go how I planned, I trust that God's plan is better. When your heart says, I can't handle this, remind yourself, I don't have to. God's strength is made perfect in my weakness. There's a peace that only comes when you stop trying to be the master of your own destiny and start trusting the one who wrote your destiny. And when you live from that place, when you start waking up every day saying, God, I trust you with this day. I trust you with my future. I trust you with what I can't see. Worry loses its grip. You were never meant to live in fear. You were created to live in faith. You were designed to live free, confident that God's got you, that he's already working out what's keeping you up at night. So today, make the decision. Not tomorrow, not when things calm down. Now, stop worrying. Trust God instead. He's never failed you, and he's not about to start now. Worry is faith in the wrong direction. Choose trust over fear. When you worry, you are believing more in the problem than in the promise. You are giving your energy, your imagination, your focus to what could go wrong instead of what God has already declared right. Every thought of fear is a seed, and whatever you water grows. The more you replay your fears, the more real they become in your emotions, your decisions, and your attitude. But here's the truth: worry doesn't prevent tomorrow's problems. It only steals today's peace. When your mind is consumed by fear, your spirit can't hear the voice of faith. You become so busy calculating outcomes that you miss the quiet whisper reminding you, I've got this. Faith and fear are two sides of the same coin. Both ask you to believe in something you can't see. Fear believes in defeat before the battle is fought. Faith believes in victory before the evidence appears. When you're living in fear, you're prophesying failure over your future. You're expecting loss, disappointment, heartbreak, and everything that could go wrong. But when you live in faith, you're declaring that God's purpose will prevail, no matter how uncertain it looks. Faith doesn't mean the absence of fear. It means the presence of trust, even when fear knocks at the door. Every time you let worry dominate your thoughts, you are rehearsing disaster. You're preparing yourself to lose. You're agreeing with the enemy's lies instead of standing on God's truth. Think about it. How many times have you worried yourself sick over something that never even happened? How many nights have you stayed awake trying to solve problems that God already had an answer for? That's what worry does. It creates an illusion of control, but it controls you instead. It takes your focus off the one who can fix it and traps you in cycles of doubt, tension, and emotional exhaustion. Worry is not wisdom. Worry is not preparation. Worry is misplaced faith. It's taking the power of belief that God gave you to shape your destiny and using it against yourself. You're imagining every negative possibility instead of declaring every divine promise. When you feed your fears, they multiply. When you feed your faith, peace multiplies. You can't have both dominating your heart at the same time. One will always push the other out. That's why you have to be intentional. You can't just hope for peace. You have to choose it. You have to decide, no, I'm not going to live another day believing my worries are bigger than my God. When fear rises, remind yourself of what God has already done. Think about the battles you've already come through, the doors that opened when you thought all hope was gone, the strength that showed up when you thought you couldn't make it another day. That's evidence of faithfulness. That's proof that God has never failed you. So why would he start now? Every time you look back and remember his goodness, you're building faith. Every time you thank him for what he's already done, you silence fear a little more. You can't stop fear from showing up, but you can stop it from setting up camp in your heart. You don't have to let every thought that enters your mind control your emotions. You can take authority. You can speak truth back to fear. When fear says you're not going to make it, faith says, if God is for me, who can be against me? When worry says, what if this falls apart? Faith says, even if it does, God will use it for my good. That's how you turn worry into worship, by shifting your focus from the size of your problem to the greatness of your provider. Fear grows when it's hidden. Bring it into the light. Speak faith even when your voice shakes. Declare God's promises even when you feel the pressure building. You are not powerless against anxiety. You are equipped with truth, authority, and divine peace that surpasses understanding. The mind that is fixed on God cannot be overwhelmed by fear. You can retrain your thoughts. You can rewire your focus. Every time worry starts to whisper, you can redirect that energy. Instead of saying, what if this doesn't work? Say, what if God is doing something bigger than I understand? It's time to stop rehearsing your fears and start remembering your faith. Worry tells you the storm is too big. Faith reminds you the one who calms storms is in your boat. Worry says you're out of options. Faith says God makes a way where there is no way. Worry says you're not enough. Faith says God's strength is made perfect in your weakness. That's the transformation that happens when you shift your focus. The situation might not change instantly, but your spirit will. You'll begin to stand taller, breathe deeper, and move forward knowing you're not fighting alone. Every challenge you face is an invitation to trust. Every delay, every closed door, every moment of uncertainty is a chance to choose faith instead of fear. You can't control the storm, but you can control your response to it. You can either magnify the problem or magnify the promise. You can either panic or you can pray. You can either live defeated or live determined. The power is in your perspective. What you focus on expands. Focus on fear, and fear will rule you. Focus on faith, and peace will lead you. You have to decide what kind of believer you want to be, one who reacts to everything that happens or one who stands strong because they know who's in control. You can't serve two masters. You can't live for faith and worry at the same time. When you make the choice to believe that God is bigger than every fear, you're breaking the habit of worry that's been holding you captive. You're declaring, I refuse to waste my energy imagining defeat when I could be expecting victory. Faith isn't about pretending everything is fine. It's about knowing that no matter what happens, you're not alone. It's trusting that even in chaos, God is working for your good. It's standing firm when fear screams for your attention and saying, I'm not listening. Every time you silence that voice of fear and speak faith instead, you strengthen your spiritual muscles. You're training your mind to follow your faith instead of your feelings. You were born to walk in confidence, not anxiety. You were created to carry peace, not panic. Worry is not your identity. It's a habit that can be broken. And it starts with one decision to trust God more than your fears, to stop letting your imagination be a playground for doubt and start letting it become a canvas for divine expectation. When you choose trust, you're not ignoring reality. You're aligning yourself with a higher truth that God is faithful, that his promises stand, and that his love never fails. You were never meant to carry what only God can handle. So many people walk through life with invisible weights on their shoulders, the weight of fear, the weight of pressure, the weight of responsibility that was never theirs to begin with. They wake up every morning already tired because they're trying to manage what only God can manage. They're trying to fix people, control outcomes, change situations, and carry the burden of what if, as if their worry could rewrite the plan. But the truth is, you weren't built for that. You weren't designed to hold everything together. You were designed to trust the one who does. When you take on more than you're meant to carry, you step out of alignment with peace. You start fighting battles that aren't yours. And the more you try to fix things in your strength, the more frustrated you become. You start to feel the tension in your spirit, that constant heaviness that doesn't go away no matter how much you try to think your way out of it. That's not because you're weak, it's because you're carrying something divine hands were meant to hold. There's a difference between being responsible and being burdened. Responsibility means you show up, you do what you can, you stay faithful in what's in your control. Burden means you try to carry the outcome, the reaction, the future, and everything you were never asked to control. That's where exhaustion comes from. That's why peace feels far away, because you're trying to do God's job, and that's a job no human can fill. Think about how many times you've tried to force something to work, a relationship, a job, an opportunity, and the more you pushed, the more it resisted. You were trying to carry it yourself. You were saying, I can't let this fail, instead of saying, God, if this isn't mine, I trust you'll give me what is. That's the moment peace returns, when you release what's not yours to fix and let God take over. When you carry what's not yours, it breaks you. But when you release it, it builds you. It strengthens your faith. It reminds you who the real source is. You were never meant to carry guilt that God already forgave. You were never meant to carry shame that God already washed away. You were never meant to carry the stress of tomorrow when God promised to provide for today. That's why Jesus said, come to me, all who are weary and burdened, and I will give you rest. Because he knew your soul can't thrive when it's overloaded with things you're not designed to handle. Some of you are fighting battles in your mind that God already won in the spirit. You're carrying the pressure of outcomes that were never in your control. You're worrying about people you can't change, situations you can't fix, doors you can't open. But here's what you can do. Surrender them. Hand them over. Say, God, this is too heavy for me. I trust you with it. Because when you give it to him, he replaces that weight with peace. When you release control, he releases strength. You can't climb if you're carrying unnecessary weight. You can't move forward if your heart is overloaded. Sometimes what's holding you back isn't the situation, it's your need to manage it all. You're trying to be the answer to every problem, the provider for every need, the planner for every outcome, and that's why you feel stretched thin. God didn't ask you to carry the whole load. He asked you to trust him with it. Letting go doesn't mean giving up. It means giving it to the one who can actually do something about it. It means you recognize your limits and his limitless power. It means you're done trying to control what was never in your hands. And that's when freedom begins to rise, when you stop striving and start surrendering. You begin to feel lighter, not because your situation changed, but because your perspective did. You realize you were never meant to be your own savior. There's strength in surrender. People think letting go means weakness, but it's the opposite. It takes courage to say, I can't carry this anymore, but I know God can. That's faith. Faith is not pretending you have it all together. It's trusting the one who holds it all together even when you don't. You were never meant to hold the world on your shoulders. That's why it feels heavy, because it's not yours to lift. Every time you release something to God, you're saying, I trust your plan more than my pressure. And he honors that. He steps in where you step back. He fills in the gaps you can't fill. He strengthens what's weak and restores what's broken. But as long as you're trying to carry everything yourself, you block the flow of his peace. You can't experience divine rest while living in constant resistance. Some of you have been praying for peace while holding on to the very thing stealing it. You're asking God to calm your heart, but you're still clutching the problem with both hands. You're asking for direction, but you're still trying to map your own way. Sometimes peace doesn't come from answers, it comes from release. The moment you say, God, I give this to you, you're making room for his presence to work. There's a reason why the greatest victories often follow surrender. When you stop trying to do it all yourself, God finally has space to move. As long as you're holding it, he won't take it by force. He waits for your trust, not your struggle. He waits for you to say, I can't, but you can. That's the language of faith. That's when mountains move. Not because you push them, but because you believe the one who could. Carrying what's not yours will wear you down emotionally, mentally, and spiritually. It will make you feel like you're failing when you're simply fatigued. It's not failure, it's misplacement. You've placed burdens meant for heaven onto human shoulders. You've taken the weight of the outcome instead of the peace of obedience. God never called you to be the controller, he called you to be the believer. Your job isn't to make everything happen, it's to trust that he will. When life gets heavy, ask yourself, am I carrying what's mine or what's God's? Because if it's his, you'll always feel the pressure. But when it's yours, there's grace to carry it. Grace gives strength where worry gives stress. Grace sustains where striving drains. You'll know the difference by the peace that follows. You were never meant to carry the unknown, the uncontrollable, or the impossible. Those belong to God. He didn't design you to live under pressure, but under peace. That's why the more you try to control, the more out of control life feels. But the more you release, the more centered you become. Trust is not passive, it's powerful. It's an act of surrender that activates divine movement. You can breathe again when you stop carrying everything alone. You can rest knowing you're not the one holding the world together. You can walk through storms without fear because you know who calms the winds. You can wake up each day and say, God, I'm giving you this day. I'm giving you the outcome. I'm giving you the people, the plans, the problems. And when you do, you start to experience life the way it was meant to be. Lived lighter, freer, and filled with peace that doesn't make sense but feels like home. Let go of control and allow God's plan to unfold. One of the biggest traps in life is believing that we are in charge of everything, that if we just push hard enough, plan carefully enough, and think long enough, we can orchestrate outcomes exactly the way we want. It's an illusion, and it's exhausting. Control is the enemy of peace. The desire to manage every detail, to anticipate every curveball, to micromanage life is a heavy burden that was never meant to be carried alone. When you cling to control, you are trying to hold the reins of the universe in hands that were never built for it. And the harder you hold, the more life resists you. Letting go doesn't mean giving up. Letting go means acknowledging your limitations and recognizing the limitless power of God. It means saying, I may not know the way, but you do. I may not see the plan, but you have a plan. I may not understand the timing, but your timing is perfect. Letting go is an act of courage because it requires humility, vulnerability, and faith. It requires you to stop trusting in your own understanding and start trusting in the one who designed the path. When you release control, you are not passive. You are powerful in a completely different way. You are allowing God to move in ways you could never manufacture on your own. Think about all the times you've held on too tightly. The times you planned meticulously, pushed relentlessly, and still faced disappointment. That's because some outcomes are not for human hands to shape. Some battles are spiritual. Some victories require divine intervention. The more you try to control everything, the more frustrated you become and the less room there is for God to work. The truth is, life works best when you do your part and trust God to do his. Your hands are designed to work, not to hold the universe together. Your mind is meant to strategize, not to dictate the future. Your heart is meant to love, not to manufacture outcomes. The desire to control comes from fear. We try to hold everything in our hands because we're afraid it will slip away if we don't. We worry about failure, rejection, loss, or disappointment. We fear the unknown, and in our fear, we clutch tighter, thinking that control equals security. But real security is not in control, it is in trust. Real security is knowing that no matter what happens, God is orchestrating the bigger picture. Real security is believing that he has the wisdom, power, and perspective that you will never have, and trusting him to guide the process. Every moment you hold on too tightly is a moment of tension, stress, and anxiety. Your body feels it, your mind feels it, your spirit feels it, and yet the answer is so simple. Release it. Hand it over. Step back and say, God, this is yours. I will do what I can, but I trust you to do what I cannot. That's simple. Act of surrender shifts your energy from frustration to peace. It shifts your focus from trying to control the outcome to faithfully doing your part. It allows space for divine creativity, unexpected blessings, and solutions beyond your imagination. Control is also an illusion because life is unpredictable. Plans change, people change. Circumstances shift. The harder you try to manage these things, the more resistance you feel, and the more your heart is burdened. But when you release control, you move into flow. You begin to notice opportunities that were invisible before because your mind was too busy trying to force a particular result. You begin to experience synchronicity, divine timing, and miracles in ways that are impossible when you insist on managing every detail. Letting go doesn't mean doing nothing. It means doing what is yours to do while trusting God with what is His. It means taking action, but without anxiety about the outcome. It means working diligently, praying consistently, and surrendering consistently. It means understanding the difference between effort and control, between responsibility and obsession, between action and manipulation. When you operate in this way, your energy is not wasted on frustration, but focused on faith and purpose. Many people fail to let go because they equate surrender with weakness. They think that if they release control, they are giving up, losing, or failing. The opposite is true. Letting go is an act of strength because it demonstrates trust, wisdom, and courage. It requires emotional intelligence to recognize your limits, spiritual insight to trust in God's plan, and mental discipline to redirect your energy from fear to faith. Letting go is not giving up. It is aligning yourself with divine power. It is choosing peace over anxiety, faith over fear, and trust over striving. When you let go, you also invite clarity. When your hands are clenched in control, your vision is narrowed. When you open your hands and surrender, your perspective widens. You begin to see the path that was hidden, the opportunities that were blocked, and the solutions that were waiting to emerge. You begin to experience life in a more vibrant, expansive, and abundant way. The moment you release control, you allow God's plan to unfold, and in that unfolding, you discover your own role in His greater purpose. Faith grows when control is released. Every time you choose to trust God instead of forcing outcomes, your confidence in His faithfulness strengthens. You start to recognize patterns, synchronicities, and confirmations that you never noticed before. You begin to understand that surrender is not passive, it is active faith. It is a deliberate, conscious choice to trust the wisdom, timing, and power of God, even when you cannot see the full picture. Life unfolds in seasons, and each season requires a different measure of control and surrender. Some seasons demand action, planning, and discipline. Other seasons demand patience, stillness, and trust. When you hold on too tightly in the wrong season, you create resistance, frustration, and unnecessary suffering. But when you release, you move with the rhythm of life instead of against it. You learn to discern when to act and when to trust, when to push and when to pause, when to plan and when to let go. That discernment comes from the alignment of your heart with God's purpose, not from human effort alone. Letting go is also an act of obedience. It acknowledges that God is sovereign, that His ways are higher than your ways, and that His understanding is beyond your comprehension. It's a daily practice, not a one-time event. Every time anxiety, fear, or the need for control surfaces, you have the opportunity to release it. You have the opportunity to say, God, I trust you with this moment, this challenge, this outcome. Every small act of surrender builds momentum, reinforces faith, and cultivates peace. The beauty of letting go is that it doesn't leave you powerless. It frees you to operate from a position of divine strength. When you are no longer distracted by the need to control everything, your creativity, insight, and energy flow unhindered. You begin to see solutions you never imagined. You begin to attract people, opportunities, and circumstances that align with God's plan. You begin to experience life as a partnership with the divine rather than a solo mission burdened by fear and control. The journey of letting go is not always easy. It requires courage, discipline, and trust. It asks you to release the illusion of control and embrace the reality of divine order. It challenges your assumptions, stretches your faith, and reshapes your perspective. But it is worth every effort because the alternative of living in constant tension, worry, and struggle is exhausting and unfulfilling. When you finally let go, you realize that the weight you carried was never yours to bear, and the freedom you gain is beyond what you imagined. Every day presents opportunities to practice letting go. Every challenge, every uncertainty, every disappointment is a chance to hand it over to God and trust his plan. You may not understand the timing, the method, or the outcome, but when you release control, you invite divine wisdom, creativity, and provision. You stop fighting a battle that cannot be won by human effort alone, and you start participating in a plan that is orchestrated by infinite power. Your hands, your mind, and your heart were designed for work, love, and faith, not for gripping life so tightly that it loses its flow. When you let go of control, you open yourself to grace, peace, and unexpected favor. You move from a life of struggle to a life of partnership with the divine. You begin to see that surrender is not passive resignation, but active trust, not weakness, but strength, not giving up, but rising above the limitations of human effort. Letting go and allowing God's plan to unfold is the path to true freedom, peace, and fulfillment. It transforms anxiety into faith, pressure into purpose, and uncertainty into opportunity. It allows life to move in its natural rhythm while your spirit rests in the knowledge that the one who holds the universe is holding you. It invites miracles into ordinary moments and brings clarity into confusion. It is the key to living fully, walking confidently, and thriving spiritually, mentally, and emotionally. Every what if in your mind has the power to steal your peace, but when you replace it with God will, you begin to reclaim your life. Worry thrives on uncertainty, on imagining the worst case scenarios, on playing endless mental movies of failure, disappointment, and loss. It convinces you that the future is a threat, that you are alone, and that the world will crumble if you don't act. And the truth is, most of the time, the things we worry about never happen the way we imagine. Most of the problems we anticipate exist only in our minds. But here's the reality. God's promises are real. His faithfulness is real. His power is real. And when you start affirming God will over every fear, every doubt, and every uncertainty, you begin to shift from panic to peace. What if is fear masquerading as preparation? When you say, what if I fail? What if this doesn't work out? What if I lose everything? You are speaking words of doubt that shape your experience. Your mind begins to hunt for evidence to confirm the fear. And suddenly, the fear becomes your reality. But when you say, God will make a way, God will provide, God will fight for me, you are speaking life over your circumstances. You are declaring faith, and faith changes everything. The more you affirm God's presence and his power, the less room fear has to operate. Every worry-filled thought is an opportunity to choose faith instead. When your mind says, what if this fails? You can interrupt that thought and respond with, God will guide me. God will protect me. God will provide. When fear whispers, what if I'm not enough? You can respond with, God will equip me. God will strengthen me. God will make a way where there seems to be no way. This isn't just motivational talk. This is spiritual strategy. Every affirmation of God's promises replaces anxiety with trust. Every declaration of faith pushes back the darkness of doubt. People often underestimate the power of words, especially the words they speak to themselves. The statements you make in your mind and aloud become the framework for your reality. If your mind constantly rehearses worry, you live in tension and fear. If your mind constantly rehearses faith, you live in peace and confidence. When you replace what if with God will, you are actively reshaping your mental and spiritual landscape. You are choosing to focus on the one who controls the future rather than the problems of the present. Faith is not passive. Faith is a decision, a deliberate act of the will to trust God in spite of circumstances. It's easy to say God will take care of it when life is smooth and the path is clear. But faith is proven in uncertainty, in difficulty, and in challenges. When you choose to say, God will handle this, even when you don't see the outcome, you are activating divine intervention. You are aligning yourself with a power far greater than your own, and that alignment transforms your experience. The what if mindset keeps you trapped in fear because it is focused on what you cannot control. God's plan, on the other hand, operates beyond the limits of your understanding. You cannot predict it, manipulate it, or manufacture it, but you can trust it. When you begin every decision, every challenge, and every uncertainty with the phrase, God will, you are acknowledging that there is a power greater than your problems, and that power is working for you, not against you. Imagine the freedom that comes when you stop imagining the worst and start declaring God's promises. Imagine what your life would feel like if instead of waking up with anxiety, you woke up saying, God will direct my steps, God will provide my needs. God will open doors that no one can close. The shift is immediate, powerful, and transformative. Your mind begins to rest, your heart begins to trust, your spirit begins to rise. The what ifs no longer dominate your thoughts because you have replaced them with the certainty of God's will. Every situation that triggers fear is an opportunity to affirm God's faithfulness. When you face uncertainty about your health, finances, relationships, or career, you can say, God will provide, guide, and protect me. You don't need all the answers. You don't need to control the outcome. You only need to trust. Trust is not blind. It is confident reliance on the one who has never failed. It's acknowledging that even though the details are unknown, the outcome is secure in his hands. The power of God's will lies in its ability to refocus your energy. Worry scatters your mind, exhausts your body, and stresses your spirit. Faith centers you, energizes you, and strengthens your inner being. When you affirm that God will handle the impossible, you are no longer expending energy trying to fix the unfixable. You are no longer carrying burdens that belong to Him. You are stepping into alignment with divine strength, peace, and provision. This principle is simple, yet so many overlook it. Life throws challenges, obstacles, and surprises that are beyond your control. Your mind wants to anticipate every outcome, and your heart wants certainty. But God operates in ways that are higher than your ways, and His timing is perfect. By affirming God's will over every fear, you are surrendering the illusion of control and embracing the reality of divine authority. You are saying, I may not see the full picture, but I trust the one who does. Faith over fear is not just a mindset, it is a practice. Every time a worry-filled thought arises, you have a choice. Feed it or replace it. Feed it and it grows, spreading anxiety and stress. Replace it with God's will and it diminishes, making space for peace, clarity, and confidence. This is not a one-time exercise. It is a daily, moment-by-moment practice. Every thought you replace strengthens your faith muscle. Every affirmation of God's promises builds resilience, courage, and inner peace. You have to realize that worrying does not change the future. Worrying does not prevent pain, loss, or difficulty. It only robs you of peace in the present and blinds you to the ways God is already working. On the other hand, affirming that God will shifts your focus from what you fear to what is faithful. It changes your perspective from scarcity to abundance, from limitation to possibility, from panic to purpose. It trains your mind to trust rather than tremble. When fear tries to whisper, what if it doesn't work? Respond with, God will make it work. When doubt says, what if I fail? Respond with, God will give me strength and success in His way and His timing. When uncertainty says, what if I lose everything? Respond with, God will provide, restore, and bless beyond what I can imagine. Each declaration is a spiritual shield. Each affirmation pushes back anxiety. Each statement strengthens your soul. Faith and worry cannot occupy the same space. The more you focus on God's promises, the less space fear has to exist. The more you affirm God's will, the more you align with divine power and timing. Life will not always be easy, and challenges will continue to arise. But when you live with a mindset of God's will, you are anchored in peace, guided by wisdom, and strengthened in spirit. You are no longer a slave to your fears, but a partner in the unfolding plan of God. Replacing what if with God's will is not just spiritual advice, it is a transformational strategy. It rewires your brain, refocuses your heart, and renews your spirit. It replaces doubt with certainty, fear with courage, and worry with peace. Every time you choose to speak life over your circumstances, you are actively shaping the reality you experience. You are choosing to live in faith, not fear. You are choosing trust over tension. Your life is too valuable to be stolen by fear and worry. The power of God's will is available to you in every moment. You can practice it in your thoughts, your words, and your prayers. You can make it your default response to uncertainty, your anchor in storms, and your declaration over every challenge. Each time you affirm that God will, you are stepping into a life marked by peace, confidence, and divine alignment. The journey of replacing what if with God will is ongoing. Life will continue to present unknowns, challenges, and moments that tempt worry. But each time you make the choice to trust, to declare God's faithfulness, and to affirm his promises, you are building a habit of faith that cannot be shaken. You are creating a life where worry no longer dictates your emotions, actions, or perspective. You are stepping into a reality where God's power, wisdom, and provision are the guiding forces. Every fear you face is an invitation to declare God will. Every uncertainty is a chance to affirm faith. Every challenge is an opportunity to speak life over your circumstances. And as you continue to replace every what if with God will, you will find that your heart rests more, your mind thinks clearer, and your spirit rises stronger. You will begin to live not in anticipation of disaster, but in expectation of divine intervention, guidance, and blessing. Peace begins the moment you decide to trust God completely. It begins when you stop relying on your own understanding and start relying on his wisdom. Life will always present situations that are unpredictable, challenges that feel overwhelming, and uncertainties that seem impossible to navigate. The human mind wants control, wants clarity, and wants certainty. But the reality is, life is full of variables beyond our grasp. The more we attempt to manage every detail, the more we exhaust ourselves, the more tension we carry, and the more anxious our hearts become. Peace is not found in control. Peace is found in surrender. It is found when we take a deep breath, release our grip on outcomes, and place our trust fully in God. To trust God completely means to believe that he is working even when you cannot see it. It means understanding that his timing is perfect, his ways are higher than yours, and his plan for your life is greater than any obstacle you face. Many people try to manufacture their own peace by controlling circumstances, planning contingencies, or overthinking decisions. But that is a temporary, fragile peace at best. True, lasting peace comes when you stop relying on yourself and begin relying on God. When you trust him, you stop living in tension about the future and start living in confidence about his faithfulness. When worry creeps in, it is a signal that your trust is divided. Fear and anxiety grow when you rely on your own strength instead of God's. When you carry burdens that are too heavy for your hands, your mind spirals, your heart races, and your spirit becomes restless. But when you decide to trust God completely, everything shifts. The weight of responsibility lifts. Your focus shifts from problems to promises. Your energy is no longer consumed by anxiety, and your soul begins to experience rest. Trusting God completely is not always easy. It requires courage because it asks you to step into uncertainty without needing to know all the answers. It requires humility because it asks you to admit that your strength and understanding are limited. And it requires faith because it asks you to believe in the unseen, the not yet manifested, and the promises that are not yet fulfilled. But here is the truth. Peace is worth the effort, faith is worth the risk, trust is worth the leap. Because when you align your heart with God's will, you step into a reality where anxiety no longer dominates your thoughts, fear no longer dictates your actions, and worry no longer steals your joy. One of the first steps to complete trust is surrender. Surrender does not mean passivity. It does not mean giving up. Surrender means releasing the illusion of control and accepting that God is in charge. It means acknowledging that while you do your part, you do not have to carry the weight of outcomes on your own. Surrender is the decision to let go of fear, to let go of anxiety, and to let go of the constant need to manipulate life to fit your expectations. When you surrender, you create space for God to work in ways that are beyond your imagination. Trusting God also means staying focused on his promises. Life is full of distractions that pull your attention toward fear, doubt, and worry. When you keep your eyes on circumstances, your heart will be troubled. But when you focus on God's faithfulness, his character, and his track record, your perspective shifts. Every challenge becomes an opportunity to see his power. Every delay becomes a lesson in patience, and every obstacle becomes a platform for divine intervention. Trust grows as you remember what he has done in the past, and peace is strengthened as you anticipate what he will do in the future. Faith is the bridge between uncertainty and peace. When you cannot see the full picture, when the outcome is unknown, when life feels unpredictable, faith allows you to step forward without fear. Faith tells your mind, I may not understand this now, but God does. Faith tells your heart, I may feel anxious, but God is in control. Faith tells your spirit, I may not see the solution, but God is already at work. And when you live in faith, your thoughts are no longer consumed by worry, your emotions are no longer hijacked by fear, and your actions are no longer paralyzed by uncertainty. It is also important to understand that trusting God completely is a daily choice. It is not a one-time decision, but a continuous commitment. Every day, circumstances will arise that tempt you to take control, to worry, or to rely on your own strength. Every day, people may disappoint you, plans may change, and unexpected challenges may appear. Each of these moments is an opportunity to renew your trust in God. Each moment is an invitation to say, I will not rely on myself, I will rely on you. I will not fear the unknown, I will trust your plan. I will not carry this burden alone, I will hand it over to you. Trusting God completely also transforms the way you respond to challenges. When you are anchored in faith, difficulties no longer feel overwhelming, obstacles become opportunities for growth, delays become periods of preparation, problems become platforms for witnessing God's power. The same circumstance that once would have caused panic, anxiety, or despair now becomes an arena where trust can flourish. Peace is not the absence of challenges, it is the presence of God's strength and assurance in the midst of them. Another essential element of complete trust is gratitude. When you focus on what God has already done for you, your heart is less inclined to worry about what he has not yet done. Gratitude shifts your perspective from scarcity to abundance, from fear to faith, and from stress to rest. Every time you remember answered prayers, every time you reflect on past victories, and every time you acknowledge his provision, you strengthen your trust, and as trust strengthens, peace naturally follows. Trusting God also requires obedience. Faith without action is incomplete. When you trust God completely, you align your choices, decisions, and actions with his will. You step forward even when the path is unclear, take risks even when the outcome is unknown, and make decisions even when circumstances are confusing. Obedience reinforces trust because it demonstrates reliance on God in practical ways. Every step taken in obedience builds confidence in his plan and strengthens the peace that comes from knowing you are walking in alignment with his purposes. It is vital to remember that peace does not come from removing all difficulties, but from trusting God in the midst of them. Life will continue to present trials, setbacks, and uncertainties. But when your trust is fully placed in God, these challenges do not shake your inner calm. Your mind may still recognize the difficulty, but your heart rests in the knowledge that he is working all things together for your good. Your spirit may still feel the pressure of life, but your soul experiences rest because you are anchored in the one who is unshakable. Letting go of fear is a natural result of complete trust. When you stop relying on your own abilities and start relying on God's wisdom, power, and timing, fear loses its grip. Worry diminishes because you no longer need to anticipate every outcome. Anxiety fades because you no longer feel the weight of carrying burdens that are not yours to bear. The moment you fully trust God, you experience freedom. Freedom from doubt, freedom from fear, and freedom from the endless cycle of worry that has held you captive. Peace begins with a decision, a conscious act of the will to trust God fully. It starts the moment you say, I will not rely on myself, I will rely on you. I will not fear what I cannot control, I will trust your plan. I will not carry burdens that are not mine, I will place them in your hands. This decision sets in motion a transformation in your mind, your heart, and your spirit. It allows you to navigate life's challenges with clarity, courage, and confidence. It empowers you to move forward with purpose, knowing that you are not alone and that every situation is under divine orchestration. Every day is a new opportunity to strengthen your trust. Every challenge is an opportunity to deepen your faith. Every uncertainty is an opportunity to experience God's peace. The more consistently you choose to trust him, the more your life becomes a reflection of his faithfulness. You begin to live in a state of rest even in chaos, joy even in difficulty, and confidence even in uncertainty. Your perspective shifts from human limitation to divine possibility, and your life is transformed as a result. Trusting God completely is not just a spiritual principle, it is a life-changing strategy. It frees you from anxiety, fear, and stress. It empowers you to live boldly, act courageously, and walk with confidence. It allows you to embrace each day with hope, expectation, and peace, knowing that you are under the care of a God who never fails. When you decide to trust him fully, you step into a reality where nothing can shake your inner calm, nothing can steal your joy, and nothing can disrupt the peace that comes from knowing that he is in control.